talk about something that's of great importance to, obviously, auto workers, and I think the Ontario economy in general, and it is one of our larger exports. It's nowhere near the size and value of the oil and gas industry, but still, Ontario's auto industry has been an important part of that province, coming up on 100 years. The news is a company called Stellantis. Now, it's not as well known a word as Fiat or Chrysler or Jeep. Those are some of the various brands that have been conglomerated under the company called Stellantis. It's quite a large automaker. It had, made more than 5 million cars last year. Its revenues were $250 billion. It really is one of the biggest automakers out there, even if you might not know the name Stellantis. Canadians, unfortunately, have gotten to know Stellantis a little bit because of the huge corporate welfare checks being sent to them by Doug Ford and Justin Trudeau. I don't know if you were paying attention to it, but for the last 2 years, Ford and Trudeau, and it's continued by Mark Carney, they think that if they give tens of billions of dollars to these super rich, they've got more money than Canada does, but they give tens of billions of, I think it totals something like $52 billion. The governments of Ontario and Canada paid or promised to pay to these super rich automakers to develop electric vehicle batteries in Ontario. I don't think there's any natural reason for that to be the thing that's done in Ontario. I could be wrong, but if you have to put in $50 billion of a subsidy, that's sort of telling me that you're doing something the market itself doesn't believe it. I mean, Silicon Valley doesn't need billions or $50 billion worth of subsidies to locate in America or in Silicon Valley. They can raise whatever money they need and they'll go where it's best for them. The fact that these huge companies were willing to take free money from Canada, I think just shows how stupid our side is. Trudeau and Doug Ford, not particularly known for their negotiating skills. Anyways, Canada and Ontario gave Stellantis and $52 billion, and I don't know if they've produced a single electric vehicle battery from it. But when you don't, when you don't really have a master plan, when you don't really know how wealth is created, and your entire strategy is just give money away, maybe you don't negotiate that hard. But here's the crazy thing: despite being given a huge amount of money, and I mean 11-figure checks by taxpayers, Stellantis has decided to leave, or at least to take hundreds of jobs away from their Brampton and possibly Windsor plants and move them to the United States, in part to get around Donald Trump's threats of tariffs. Anyways, here's Doug Ford just raging about it, and I can understand, frankly. This is one of the most important industries in Ontario, and Doug Ford is just watching it slip away. It's really happening. It's not just threats anymore. Stellantis is leaving.
That guy, President Trump, he's a real piece of work. You know something? What my message to the Prime Minister when I meet him on Thursday is, if you can't get a deal, let's start hitting him back. Let's start hitting the U.S. back hard. Because all Trump does is continue. We're nice, play nice in the sandbox. And today's yesterday's 10% on softwood lumber. After it was 35%, he increased it 10%. And then he all of a sudden, one day out of the blue, someone must have told him cabinet makers. And we should ship a lot of cabinets down there. And all of a sudden now there's a tariff there. I am sick and tired of sitting and rolling over. We need to fight back. Folks, we are an economic powerhouse. We buy $356 billion of goods, Canada does, off the U.S. We're the number one customer to the U.S. No one in the world buys more goods than what we do. We need to start hitting back and hitting back hard. That's the only thing this person understands. Sorry, I just get pumped up talking about this guy. He drives me absolutely crazy. He does. And we aren't going to roll over. I'm not going to let him roll over Ontario, I'll tell you that.
This will be the last reporter.
Yeah. Thank you.
Matt Kennedy here for CTV News.
Hi, Matt.
Hi, Premier. I'm wondering, are you still committed to the billions, committed to the Stellantis EV deal in Windsor, given what the company has done in Brampton?
I'm not going to give him a penny because it was tied in to making sure Windsor and keep Brampton going. And we haven't given them a penny for Brampton yet. We gave them about 55 million out of the couple billion that the feds and I and the companies agreed. You know, it's disappointing. They said they're going to keep Brampton open. I had a conversation with the president of Stellantis yesterday. He said, well, we're going to postpone it for a year. We're going to find a new model. You know, I don't understand. They're investing $13 billion in the U.S. We're, you know, an auto manufacturing powerhouse here. They're going to transfer 1,500. The only good news, there's no good news, but the only good news is they're adding a third shift in Windsor, and they're going to try to transfer 1,500 people from Brampton down to Windsor. But we're competitive. We can produce the best vehicles anywhere in the entire world, right here in Ontario. So I'm going to keep pushing like they've never seen before.
I really don't know what Doug Ford is trying to do other than to put on a performance of grief and rage. Here he is calling Donald Trump a tyrant. I know what that word means, and I know it's ancient meaning in the Roman sense. You know, it might be accurate. I don't think it is, but I know this. It's probably not going to help the trade negotiations. Here he is calling him a tyrant.
My number one job is make sure we protect the people of Ontario. I need to protect the communities against that tyrant south of the border, which drives me absolutely nuts. And we'll always be there to protect the families and businesses who call our province home.
I see that Melanie Joly has chimed in. I don't even know what position Melanie Joly has anymore in the government. I don't really think it matters. I don't think she's an actual decider. I think she's there for demographic reasons, a francophone woman who is, you know, compared to other politicians, attractive and young, I guess. I don't think she was of any use in her foreign affairs portfolio. I think she's just there as a hanger-on. It's sort of shocking to me that Mark Carney continued to have her in cabinet, but, you know, most of the cabinet is reheated. But here she is with her deep thoughts.
Well, let me be clear on Stellantis. I'm extremely disappointed about this decision, and not only am I disappointed, it's completely unacceptable. So we will fight for these jobs. We will fight for the jobs at Brampton. We'll fight for the jobs that were committed by Stellantis, and we'll fight for our auto sector. I've been in contact with Lana Payne, the head of Unifor, yesterday and today. I've been in contact with Flavia Volpe, who's an important voice in the sector. We've been working hand in glove also with the Ford government, and we're one strong Team Canada together. And the company has commitments under different types of agreements with the government, including the fact that we provided support for the retooling of the very Brampton facility that right now is sitting idle. So we will make sure that we push the company and we hold them to account.
I have a real question for you. If you had $13 billion like Stellantis has, would you invest it in Ontario or would you invest it in the United States? Put everything else aside. Like, where do you think the economic future is stronger? I mean, we all know that the market is in the U.S. That's what Trump is doing. He's saying if you sell your cars in America, you should build them in America. And there's sort of a basic logic to it. I know there was logic behind the Auto Pact, and I know there were other reasons to have the production on both sides of the border. But I'm just saying, even if, you know, whatever industry you're in, it doesn't have to be cars. It could be any industrial or tech or health company. If you had a choice to put it in Ontario or to put it in the United States, which do you think is the more promising economy? I just don't know how many people would say, yeah, Carney and Ford's Canada with out-of-control spending and taxes and out-of-control social problems and crime, that's the future for business. I just don't think it is. I think that Canada's sort of impotent these days. And what could you do? I mean, Doug Ford, I think, looks like an oaf. And I don't think he's making any friends in the White House. Not that he's part of the negotiating team. He's a provincial premier. I mean, he has about as much relevance as a mayor. But what can he do, really? Trump is saying if you want to sell cars in America, build them in America. And the car companies are saying, all right, even if we don't like this, we can't fight it. I want to show you the press release that the White House put out. They sent it around and they posted a website. Let me read to you the part about Stellantis. Stellantis announced a $13 billion investment in the United States, the largest single investment in the company's history. The automaker plans to expand its U.S.-based production by 50% over the next 4 years, reopening its plant in Belvidere, Illinois, and adding production at its Toledo, Ohio, Warren, Michigan, Detroit, Michigan, and Kokomo, Indiana plants. The investment will bring 5,000 new jobs and the production of 5 new vehicles to the U.S. In Canada, the debate is, do we get our 12 or 15 billion back from the electric vehicles? So in Canada, the only debate is who gets the government grant. In America, the debate is, oh, wow, Stellantis is bringing in their largest investment in history. And that's sort of been Trump's theme. Trump isn't announcing what Canadian politicians call investments, i.e. government grants. He's announcing investments. Foreign companies saying, yeah, we want to put money in America, open factories, hire people. I honestly don't know how to stop that. Ontario has no electoral college votes. It makes economic sense for these countries to go in the United States, but it also makes political sense to them. And if you're Donald Trump, you care about Ohio, Michigan, Indiana. Those are battleground states. I just don't know what Canada can do. Maybe it's something asymmetrical. Maybe Canada can be valuable, can be powerful vis-a-vis the United States in a strategic way, doing something else. There are probably creative ways to get around this because sheer GDP to GDP, economy to economy battles, we're not going to win that. I think that in the past, we've gotten along with strong American leaders through personal charm, by the way. Brian Mulroney and Ronald Reagan had a shared Irish roots. And I remember when they had that famous summit where they were both singing When Irish Eyes Are Smiling. That was a valuable connection. Even when the two leaders disagreed, like Barack Obama and Stephen Harper, both men really tried to make the relationship work. I think it's fair to say that Mark Carney has been abusive in his language towards Donald Trump. I'm not saying it's not a two-way street, but Mark Carney's entire political promise was, I'm going to be tough on Donald Trump, and I'm going to be elbows up, and I'm going to sock it to him. That worked enough to convince enough Canadians to vote Liberal, but if, whether you like him or you hate him, I just think we can all agree that doesn't work with Donald Trump. I think that you can reach out to him on a personal level. I think you can reach out to him on a strategic level. Remember when the president of El Salvador, which is a tiny country, did something really useful and valuable to Donald Trump? That supermax terrorist prison that El Salvador made, and they basically arrested every gang member and every drug dealer in the country and put them in this supermax prison, one of the largest prisons in the world. It's very interesting. And he did, and Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, did it for Salvadorans. But then he knew that America had a need. Where are you going to put your MS-13 deportees? He said, I'll take them. And he did Trump a political favor, frankly, an economic favor, a legal favor. And so Trump, I think, smiles on El Salvador, not because El Salvador is a mighty economy, but because they actually helped him out. Maybe there's something Canada could have done, should have done in that vein. Even if it was just not trying to step on the negotiations for the Hamas-Israel peace deal. In the middle of tense negotiations, Mark Carney says, you know what, I'm just going to reward Hamas by saying that I support the independence of Palestine. Is that ingratiating you with? Every American leader said that made it tougher. There are ways Canada can be useful. I think oil and gas is the most important way to make America independent of OPEC oil. But of course, that's against the liberal agenda.